that magic number that we always try to hit, and everybody
Okay,
seems
all right,
to be here.
great. I love it. I love it. All right, so then I was super, like I said, I was super excited to talk about this because we haven't talked about couches or sofas yet, but there's a lot of really good stuff in the thing. Oh, I have a question for everybody before we get started. Has everybody seen, put a 1 in the chat if you've seen the Design Club orientation video that we just uploaded. A
few people have seen it.
Where is it, Maggie?
Why don't I show you guys?
Please. Yes.
Yeah. So guys, what Lisa's talking about is our orientation video, and you can find it under videos, under the tab Design Club recipes. And it's front and center right here, the Design Club orientation.
Yes. And, I really wanted everybody to see it, even if you've been in the club for a while, because, we keep adding things, but you don't know where we add them necessarily. And so that orientation sort of gives you a quickie reference point on how to navigate and get around, make it quick and simple for you to be able to find whatever it is you're looking for. So,
well, we didn't expect everyone to run over there and see that, but I am surprised that more people have seen it than I would have expected. So that's great. This was designed to be able to be something that we would send to you as an email when you first join this Design Club. Because one thing that goes on with the Design Club that you guys probably know is there's so much in there. It's sort of like being in this, I don't know, like, yes. Remember National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, that movie? Remember he's like in the big giant vault and there's everything? It's kind of like that. There's so many things in the Design Club. And if you kind of don't know where to go, and it's hard to figure out what to do. And the recipes were really designed to fix that problem. And Tara did her video. She's the first one to do a video. And she's like the last one for us to upload. So anyway.
I know, right? But it's there now. So it's really great. It's a shorty, but it shows you different ways to get around, which is super helpful. So now there's some serious OGs here on today, but if you are relatively new, it's a great place to pop into. So, all right, well, listen, let's talk about sofas, because I am super excited. And there's a lot. What?
Jonathan and the twins are going at it. So.
Oh, the twins. All right, now can everyone see the image? Let's see. Because it stopped doing the green. Anyway, all right.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why, but it's great. I can see it.
You can see it. Okay, great, great. So this is, of course, there's multiple documents that you can use to when you're getting ready to make the big decision that Megan has just made, right? And here's one of the first ones that we're going to touch base on this one, but I'm also going to go through a couple of the others that you should know about. Which is, this is found in the library, right? And this is one of these fantastic books that kind of goes over a lot of different details about understanding sofas. And in particular, we wanted to create a little bit of an emphasis on if you are forced to buy a sofa and your other pieces online because you're not able to do a sit test. So we kind of go through a little bit of that as well. So I hope this is going to help you guys out, but this is the cover on the library that you want to look for. And of course, there's a lovely aspirational, I always love these deep colored navy blue ones. I also, think they're amazing things, but you want to, when you pick a sofa, you want to be really committed to that color and be able to live with it for a while. So anyway, and it's funny because it does seem simple enough. I'm just going to go get a sofa. But the reality of it is not at all simple, because there's a lot, like many things to do with design. There's a lot of planning that has to happen ahead of time so that you get it the right way. And factors that you need to consider are the scale of the piece. I'm going to go over that in a minute. The layout of your space. I'm going to show you where you can find that out. Traffic patterns, start talking about layout as well. And then also intentionality, which actually encompasses both your design statement and kind of a little bit about how you live in a space and what you're going to use with it. So let's talk a little bit first about the idea of kind of, let me see. Okay, so sizes, and then we're going to talk about scale. So sizes really, they vary immensely. And in this reference, by the way, let's define what we're talking about in terms of sofa or large seating arrangement, which a large seating piece, which is that you can have a regular sofa, which is just a regular straight line sofa. Okay, you can also have sofas that have sectional pieces, or pieces that are added onto one side or the other, that create what's commonly known as the sectional. And they're often L-shaped. Frequently they're L-shaped. Sometimes they are U-shaped, which means they have additional parts of the seating element extending out in front of the main rectangle in the front. Okay, so we're going to cover all of those today. But the thing that you want to understand is when you're talking about sizing, right, you need to take into account your space, of course. And I know this sounds really, oh gosh, how can I say this? This sounds really basic, but I am astonished at how often that is not taken into consideration. And things like, all of a sudden you can't figure out how to get it home and get it installed into your space. It doesn't fit through your doorway. You have to take a door jamb off. I've seen that done. Or you have to open up a set of windows or some sliding doors and figure out how you're going to move it through the space to get to where it belongs. So the scale of the piece has to, not the scale, but the size of the piece actually has to be taken into consideration. So, size wise, you've got a little bit of work to do that has to do with kind of your layout and understanding, but you also have to know what your other kinds of limitations are, like what are the choke points or the restrictions that would come into play. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about scale from the standpoint that scale is related to size, but it has to do with other parts, not just the overall final dimensions. It actually has to do with what are the dimensions of the actual piece. Like, for instance, what is the seat height and what is the back height, and what would be an appropriate solution for your space? That's super important. Yes, Dana.
Andy in chat, I don't know if you can read it, but says, please cover how to adjust for tall people. My husband is 6'3" and my
I'm
legs
about to do
are
that.
long.
I'm about to do that. That's a scale conversation. So that's what I was about to say, which is that scale relates to things like depth of the overall piece, the height of the seat from the floor, the height of the arm from the floor, the height of the back from the floor and from the seat top. So the scale, the thickness of the arms, maybe if they are rolled, how deep is that roll, or is it a tight roll? What are the feet like? Or maybe it has no feet, maybe it's skirted. Those are all scale relationship measurements that you need to be taking into consideration when you're making a selection. And that is such a perfect example. I have some private clients that I've had for many years, and he is like 6'4", just like your husband, and she is like maybe 5'1" on a good day with heels. Okay, so trying to find trying to build for them is a bit of a challenge, right? Because she always needs lower counter heights and things of that nature. And sofas are super complicated to pick for them, because if they're both going to be sitting together, she literally needs a smaller sized sofa than he does. Now, if your husband is super tall, one of the things that you need to consider is the fact that you cannot go with something that's really cool and contemporary and long and low backed. All right. When your husband is sitting down, a good proportion of his height is actually from the waist up. And so he's going to need a higher back to support him comfortably in that sofa. So those are the kinds of things that you need to think about when you're talking about the scale of a piece. The second part of the scale conversations that's also very important relates to back to the dimensioning, which was the first conversation. And it's things like, how tall are your ceilings? Because if you have a 7.5, 8-foot high ceiling, you do not want to do a sofa that has a super high back in there. It's going to look really overskilled for the room. It's going to overpower the room. You may want to put one lounge chair that's maybe like a wingback chair that has a full height to it. And that might be the only thing you can accommodate in a space that has a low ceiling height. So think scale-wise, low ceiling heights equals a little lower on the furnishings, heights, feels more appropriate and more to scale for your space. Now, if you've got a great room and you're in Texas or wherever, and you're looking at 12-foot ceilings in that room, you can push for a really high back on that sofa and some overscaled arms perhaps, or some really, kind of beefy or chunky dimensioning on those kinds of things. And that will make a huge difference in terms of having the piece feel appropriately scaled for the space as well. Another one to consider is, how high are your windows and what shape are your windows? If you're lucky enough to be living in Paris, and you have those beautiful French full height windows, you can do some low pieces, you can do some high pieces, it doesn't matter. But if you're in a condo in New York and your ceiling height and your windows are kind of normal height, or maybe even on the smaller or narrower side, you are definitely, again, going to be thinking about a scaled piece that feels a little bit lower and a little bit tighter. Now, the third conversation around scale actually relates back to the dimensioning and the sizes that we were talking about at the beginning, which is that, say you're in a, I'm going to say a one-bedroom apartment, okay, a one-bedroom condo. Okay, so that one-bedroom condo has a pretty tight floor plan. And so your size and the scale of the piece in the room needs to be a little bit more compact. Perfect example is there's a vendor out there called Restoration Hardware, and they have a sofa style known as the Cloud. All right, so you can buy that Cloud in 4 different depths, I think, 15 or 20 different lengths, okay, and 2 or 3 back heights. So they are accommodating that piece up and down the scale ratios to be able to get, if you like the style of the sofa, but you have, a smaller footprint for the space, then you can get it in a smaller version to fit into your space, but still have the styling details that you want. And so if you guys are interested in sofas and you're living in, say, a townhome that has smaller floor plates or a condo or something like that, what's great about the vendors nowadays is that the majority of them have brought out pieces that they call that are small space living or apartment sized or those kinds of things. And that's where you want to be looking at things, because your overall dimensions are going to be a little bit more compact, and that will work better for you than the regular size sofas. Okay. So this all talks a little bit about the idea of measuring, and you really, really want to know where you're going to place this piece, and you want to understand your space. So here's where we jump outside of where we jump out. Sorry, there we go. Where we jump outside of the book that we have on sofas, and you can go to another book, which we had a masterclass on. When did we have that one, Megan?
The one on layouts, this one.
Yeah,
I believe
a layout room.
I believe a couple of weeks ago, but it is live in our video section of the Design Club if you want to watch the replay.
Great, great. Gaia, can you post the link to that? Because they're going to need this book as well to understand where they're going to be placing their sofa, because you may have already done this step, but once you look at a sofa again, you want to go back in and make double sure, because guys, you can always measure a second or third time, but you cannot cut more than once. Okay, so that's the old phrase. All right, so in here, you're going to go to this section on knowing your space, which is you need to absolutely measure exactly that room up so that you can put it together in a little bit of a quickie floor plan. And again, you can do it by hand if you want, if you're good at that, or there's a number of ways you can get a floor plan put together. But here's where you want to consider about where you're thinking of placing that sofa in your floor plan, which is things like, is it facing your primary oh my gosh, your primary visual destination? Oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm losing track.
Are you thinking your focal point?
Focal point, thank you.
Okay,
oh my gosh.
I knew what you meant.
I needed another coffee instead of my other drink. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yes, is it facing, or can you easily view your primary focal point from the sofa, from that sofa, if you place it there? Secondly, what's your traffic flow? Now, traffic flow means how do people move around spaces, around pieces in the space? Okay, so if you're putting your sofa right in the middle of the direct line between the entry to the room and the sliding glass doors to go out of the room, it's not a really good location for a large piece, because you're not going to move it a lot, A, and B, it's completely blocking the traffic flow. Okay. The second thing you need to be thinking about is a term we call clearances. Okay. Which is, many people out there have either radiators or baseboard heaters. Okay. You need to have upholstered pieces a certain distance away from those heaters. And I know it seems to like make common sense, but you'd be shocked at how many times I have seen people that have pushed stuff up against thing and the stuff has burn marks on it. You know, it's like not burn marks, but it's been heat. The heat has changed it over time, and it's just kind of ruined. So you definitely need to think about traffic flow clearances. Another type of clearance that you need to think about is when you're sitting on your sofa, how far is it do you have to reach to put down your book, drink, plate of food, whatever it is that you're engaging with when you're on the sofa? How far is that coffee table? And does that give you a clearance to walk between them evenly? So this document, which is how to lay out a room, gives you all kinds of references on kind of how to do that. All right. So then we can pop back to this little to this part of the actual how to choose the right sofa. and it talks a little bit more in depth about traffic patterns. You know, the key thing is that this is a perfect example. If you look at this traffic pattern, this is determined by this doorway here, right? And so when you first walk in, there's a passageway to in here. Now, this chair sort of encroaches a little bit on that, and quite frankly, it may have been moved there for the photograph. It's hard to know sometimes when you're studying photographs. It may sit more a little bit closer to here regularly. But what that is that's creating a clear traffic pattern to access other spaces in the room and to come in and sit down. Okay, so their main sofa piece, because this is a more mobile piece than your sofa is. Once your sofa goes down, guys, it's really not moving. Okay, so you really want to make sure that your traffic flow is being considered when you're looking at your floor plan and deciding on the size of your sofa and kind of how it fits for the space as well. And then, you know, talking about the layout of the space, another thing that you want to think about when you're working on your floor plan and your sofa, which is that big anchor piece in the room, is you want to think about your architectural features. You know, what are your doors, obviously? What are your windows? That's another big consideration. I just fixed somebody in Inner Circle the other day who was going to put her sofa right in front of a bunch of windows. And I'm like, no, that's not the best place for that sofa because you're blocking your view. And many times that's really an important element of the room. And on top of that, you know, all that sun coming in and all the rest of that ends up fading your piece. So that's never a good solution. You want to consider windows as feature elements or, you know, important focal points. Like I mentioned, heating vents and any other built-ins. That's something to accommodate also. For instance, a lot of times in great rooms or maybe say compact apartments, you may have kind of some built-in shelving or maybe shelving with base cabinets below. And if you slam a sofa right up against the side of that, you're not gonna be able to access those cabinets. So you need to be able to think about having clearance for you to be able to open those doors or access those drawers or access those shelves. So you want to think about kind of what shape feels right, what size feels right, and what layout and proportion feels right. And then you can begin to kind of finalize your selections for a sofa. And, you know, this does talk about the high ceilings, taller sofas with taller backs, lower ceiling, shelf for lower profile. And here's another tricky one for everybody. Open floor plans. All right. So say you have a studio, or for instance, say you have a great room. That's a really troublesome for a lot of people because you don't want to be anchoring your sofa up against a wall in a great room necessarily. It depends upon the flow and the traffic patterns and the layout and where your focal points are. But free floating a seating area in an open floor plan like a great room often can be a great solution to allow you to give the back of the sofa the opportunity to act as a invisible wall that ends that conversation, that's conversation grouping, and then allows you permission to start a second space, like maybe a dining room or something that has another function to it that's still within the same space and there's no technical walls there, but the back of the sofa can act as a wall, especially if you have enough room to put in, say, like a slender hall table or what's called a sofa table, which tends to be just the right height for majority of backs, sofa backs, which tends to be, you know, often can be sitting in the 36 to 39 inch range from the floor. And so that table can act as a break point for that seating group on the front side, which is where the sofa is facing. And then the back side can be another function. Maybe it's a study, maybe it's a dining room, maybe it's some sort of function like a kitchen. And then that table is used to act as a visual break, and you put some items on it that relate to the other space, and then you actually have this really nice relationship. There's also backing two sofas up against each other with a slender table in between if you have an enormous room. I've done that a lot with kind of hotel lobbies and really, really big spaces. Like I've done a couple of rooms or spaces that we were working with. You guys down in Texas, you have a lot of square footage and you can really build out these big rooms that were like 30 by 45. And so in that space, that's literally a lobby. And so you're breaking it up into several sofa sets with seating arrangements added to them. So, you clear that with that central table and it creates a nice layout opportunity. So that's why it's super important to work with your floor plan before you do anything. You can get some inspo, right? And you can kind of get some ideas of what you're looking for, but you really definitely want to be thinking about all of those things before you start to plunk down any money. All right, now let's talk about the last thing that's super important about choosing a sofa, which, as I mentioned, we call it intentionality, but it encompasses two elements. It encompasses the idea of what are you doing in that space, meaning what's your style statement, okay? How many people do you reasonably expect on a regular basis for the piece to accommodate? That's very important. And here's a super pro tip that most people, a lot of designers don't even understand this, because I've worked both for hotels for most of my life as well as residential. And here's something about human behavior that is incorporated into really good design, which is this. If you are designing a room and the people that you are going to have coming into that room are close to you, meaning they are family, very close friends, maybe extended family, kids, dogs, that kind of thing. Those people have what's called a smaller personal space requirement. Okay. Now, in the US, it is different than it is in, say, Europe, who has a much tighter range of personal space acceptability limits. Okay. And I'm not really sure about Australia. You guys have really spread out like we are. So you guys might have bigger personal space limitations as well. But here's the deal. If you're expecting this room to act as a little bit more of like what we used to call a formal living room, or a space that you may actually have a party in that will have people that aren't related to you or aren't very, very close friends to you. They may be actually strangers, perhaps to each other, if not to you. Then they are not willing. They have a much wider personal space margin. Okay. And what that means is that if you pick out, let's just say, an 84-inch sofa, 84 inches in length, okay, which can typically accommodate 3 people, maybe 4 smaller people if they're willing to sit close together. That's fine if the personal space requirements are tight enough to allow it, meaning that sofa is best accommodating for people that are friends of each other, family relationships, that kind of thing. If, for instance, that 84-inch sofa is going into your formal living room and it's facing the dining room and you're actually going to use that space mainly for entertaining, then you're not going to get more than 2 people on that sofa. because those people are not willing to sit next to each other if they don't know each other. That's the key. So there's the pro tip to understand, which is that if you're designing a space that is going to be used by you and your family and your kids and your relations and all the rest of that, you can squeeze more into the actual sofa portion of the room than you can if it's a little bit more formalized. So know that going in, and that's one of the things I mean by intentionality. How are you going to use the space? Okay. Second thing about intentionality is, of course, your design style statement. And there's we have a fabulous let me go down to this. We have a fabulous quiz that Megan has made up. Megan and I made up together. Actually, she does all these beautiful quizzes. But we're calling it Find Your Sofa Mate. And this kind of gives you an idea around style statements and kind of where you'll go with it, how you'll use it, that kind of thing. So be sure before you start shopping that you've taken this quiz at least 3 times, guys. You can't take a quiz once and run with that answer, okay? You have to, am I right, Megan? How many times?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I would say, 2 to 3 times for sure. And what's great, guys, is at the end of this quiz, it gives you actual product suggestions. So
yes,
takes out the guesswork there. Yep.
Yes. Okay, good.
We should actually consider, Lisa, we should consider taking the quiz together as a group.
Well, that'd be fun. Let's do it this weekend.
Okay, want to do that maybe?
I do, yeah. This is actually one of my favorite quizzes.
I love that.
Okay, well, yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have everybody vote like 1, 2, 3, or 4 in chat, and whatever we get the most of, right, the majority, we'll enter that, and then we'll see as a group what our sofa is.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
I love
it.
that idea. Okay. Now, here's a third element of the sofa. Say you've heard me talk about, all these other people and personal space requirements and all the rest of that, and you're going, it's just me. It's me and the dog, or me, my husband, and the dog. So what do we do then? Then what you need to do is you need to analyze how you move, meaning how do you sit? Now, there are people that I call upright sitters. So for instance, they want a relatively short seat distance, and they either want enough cushions so they can sit upright, okay? Or there are people that I call the loungers, all right? Which are those folks that literally, the minute they hit that sofa, their legs go up on whatever surface is in front of them, even if it's your beautiful coffee table that's gonna get scratched. That's just the lounger, okay? So that's kind of a behavior that you have to accommodate. So in the case of a lounger, you're going to want a deeper seat and a lower back, all right? If you sit more upright, then you're going to want to have a shorter seat and a little bit higher back. It doesn't have to be as high as the gentleman who's 6'3", but it does need to be a little bit higher maybe than one of the super low ones. A lot of people just hang out on their sofas and nap. I know I've had people sleep on my sofa a number of times, or watch family movie nights. That's when you're looking at sectionals, you're looking at super loungy, comfortable pieces and things like that. And we're going to get into comfort and how it sits in just a second when we start talking about how to buy one. But understanding your behaviors and understanding your style statement and understanding how you're going to use the room all are part of doing the kind of programming around making the perfect decision for a sofa. Because guys, these things can run, 10, 12, 15. I've put in $20,000. Now they were huge sofas, but they get very expensive. So it's a very important thing to have done your homework so that you don't regret it. right? So that's really, really important. So that's all, believe it or not, that's all in those two books, How to Lay Out a Room and How to Select a Sofa, okay? That are both in the library. Now, if you pop over to, excuse me, if you pop over to Lisa's Brain, okay, which is our wonderful sort of like documents that don't fit into a book quite, but are very important. There's a wonderful one on called How to Buy a Sofa. And here's the crazy thing about buying a sofa is that, like I said, it's a tough choice when you're having to make a choice online. So I'm going to help you out with that as well. But here's my rule that I like to break as rarely as possible. Now, we all just went through COVID. So, the reality of it was you literally couldn't get into showrooms to go do what I call the sit test. Okay. And my rule of thumb is I don't work with anybody who isn't willing to go sit in a piece. I won't actually even let them buy it, because the reality of it is if they don't like it, they can't take it back. All right. So, or if they can take it back, it's a big hassle and, they've made a mistake. They're out money. It's just a problem. So the reality of it is a sit test is a primary requirement for buying things, buying large investment pieces like sofas and that kind of things. All right. So, so here's your situation. You're in a place where maybe you're up in, a remote part of Quebec or, someplace like that, and you can't get to showrooms very easily. Well, you need to do some homework ahead of time. And this is kind of the things you want to look at, because you want to eventually see if you can head down to a big city that will have a couple of spaces and kind of get into that. First thing you want to do is you want to read reviews. Now, the great thing about, online purchasing that it morphed into during COVID was the fact that people really realized that they needed help and they could only get it online. So almost every vendor threw in great functioning review sections to 99% of their pieces and all of their pieces if they're like big sofas. Ooh, Maggie, is this a CB2?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Yep,
I love it.
is.
This is a very good looking piece too. So, okay. So first thing that you see here is there's a description that says beautiful, firm sofa. Okay. So right away, any of you that are loungers out there are going, oh, I don't know if I want firm. I may want something that's a little less than firm. Okay. Then you want to read through these descriptions, read as many that are as current as you can get. And here's a rule of thumb, guys: no reviews, no buy. Do not purchase. If there are no reviews on that thing, do not be the sucker that gets it in the house and you hate it. Okay. Just know that you have to rely on other people's opinions on things. And you have to read through a fair number, because some people expect more than a furniture should be for some things, and some people aren't. So you have to really read through a number of them. Okay. This is also a good example. They have this particular vendor, CB2, in fact, has depth, comfort, and seat height. Okay. So is it shallow depth? All right. If it's shallow, this is more of an upright sitting sofa. All right. Comfort level is between firm and soft. It's leaning towards firm. Okay. So that tells you right away that if you're a super lounge and you want to sink into a potato, this is not your sofa. Okay. Seat height is just above low. Now that's a problem with the following. If this sofa is going into any space that might be a multi-generational space, and you might have say older people that have a little bit more limited mobility, you want a higher seat height than low. okay? Low is tough on, older folks' knees and things like that. So it's a little important to think about in terms of your seat height. So those are really great. Yeah, she says they're your BFFs. Read them. Yeah, you really want to read them so that you can kind of get a vibe after the first like 5 or 6 of them about what the reviews will be saying, right? So now here's a little thing to understand a little bit about construction on upholstered pieces. Now, sadly to say, we have moved away for the last 20 years, I would say, from handmade, bench made custom sofas. Now you can still buy them. And there's a number of vendors out there that will make them for you, but it's kind of rare. It's sort of in the sort of designer only access range, and they're very expensive and they take forever. You think things are taking long now? Wait to try and get something custom. I just waited on a piece for a client that I ordered in November and it delivered this week. So that was a long lead time, guys. So here's the deal. You want to know some of the buzzwords because people are going to talk a little bit about this. Both the manufacturer is going to talk a little bit about it, and they might talk about it in some of the reviews. Okay. So there's a couple of words that you're sort of looking for if you're looking for a reasonable quality piece. Okay. You're going to look for kiln dried hardwoods. All right. Now, guys, if you're looking for a $500 sofa, that is an entirely separate conversation. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a $500 sofa. I'm just saying that putting that in the kids' room is probably the best location for it because maybe it's temporary until you move into a new place in a year or a year and a half or something. There's a lot of ways that sometimes the furniture that is super inexpensive serves a purpose. You can also always think of something that's think about looking at something that's been used if it's kind of clean. Although I'm not a super big fan of used upholstery items unless you reupholster it. Anyway, so kiln dried hardwoods. What does that mean? That means that the actual construction of the frame of the sofa is actually made out of solid wood and it's kiln dried. Okay. Why? Because there are actually vendors out there that don't make it out of solid wood. And the problem with that is that because all these pieces, when you sit into them, move a little bit back and forth, they give way just a little bit. And the harder the pieces are that are making up the actual frame of the sofa, the less wear that give takes on that frame. All right. So if that frame is MDF, eventually that's basically that's just a lot of wood chips and some resin together. That's eventually going to wear and the sofa is going to eventually give out. So you like the idea of kiln dried hardwoods. That's one thing you want to see. 8-way hand-tied steel springs. Okay, now we're getting into some very high quality pieces. All right, not very high quality, but you're getting into an important piece. Okay, hand-tied steel springs. They are simply the most resilient and the strongest kind of spring. Okay, you can think about this with mattresses too. If you buy an all foam mattress, it's a completely different construction than a spring mattress. It's the same with a sofa. If you buy a sofa that does not have any springs in it, but it does have just webbing, that's a different construction, less expensive, okay, still justifiable, but it's not going to wear as long as these 8-way hand-tied steel springs. Now, you're going to pay for them, but it's also going to last 20 years. Okay, so you want to really think about that. Corner blocked. All right, corner blocked. That means, oh gosh, what can I say? Corner blocked. Let's just do this. in corner blocking, you have a piece of hardwood or frame that actually sits in the middle of the corner. So remember I said to you that these things give a little bit, they wiggle a little bit back and forth. So the corner blocking prevents the wiggling and creates more stability to the piece, okay? Now, that's the actual making of the frame and the suspension system for the cushions and all the rest of that. The cushions, let's talk about those for a second. They can be anything. They can be down, foam, or polyester, or in many, many places now, it's a combination of all three, okay? So here's the deal. More down equals more loungy, all right? Also equals more fussing, okay? Because what happens is down compresses. And so if you guys have down pillows, right, you get up in the morning, that pillow is flat as a pancake because your head weight has been resting on it all night, okay? Now, you fluff it up again and it's fine. So that's the same with down cushions in a sofa. So if you love that super scrunchy look that down comes with, and you're willing to go around fluffing all of your pieces all the way every day, then feel free, get something that's all down, because it will be a lounge magnet for as long as it lasts, because down is super soft and super relaxing. I personally do not find all down to be supportive enough. I actually kind of have a little bit of a funky back. So if you do, you want to look at things that are a combination of down, foam, and or polyester. And you know, the reality of it is usually what you've got is this is foam in here. There's usually a 3-inch, which is called a 3-inch green foam, which is usually a dense foam that is often either down or polyester fiber wrapped, okay? And then that whole casing is usually wrapped in a polyester, like a polyester webbing net that kind of holds it all together and kind of keeps it all in place. And then that goes either into the lining and then the upholstery cushion, the upholstery fabric, or goes straight into the upholstery fabric itself, okay? Usually if there's lining, it's because the sofa comes as a slip cover. So you actually have two covers that you're sort of dealing with. Now, let's talk about that final fabric for a minute, because that's an important part of construction also, which is that the quality of the fabric can make the sofa, in other words, if the construction and the fiber characteristics of that fabric that is the final upholstery fabric is very important to judge, just because, like the conversation we just had with Megan, right? Depending upon how the piece is constructed, seat cushion wise, you may need to clean that fabric. You may either need to remove it or know how you're cleaning it. So you need to know, A, what is your soiling likelihood going to be? B, what would the most appropriate fiber be for that? Because many sofas now are offered in what they call stain resistant, like polyolefins and blends like that, okay? So there's lots of products out there that you can even get like in a light color, like Megan's gotten, and are in a performance fabric. So they easily resist soiling. So that's a really good thing to think of. And then the third thing that most people don't really know about is what's known as the Weizenbeek, otherwise known as, in normal English, the double rub count on fabrics, okay? And that is a test that is done. So when a fabric is designed, and oh gosh, I've never really talked a little bit about this, but I used to design a lot of custom textiles for some of my projects for the hotels because they needed very specific kinds of pieces. And so I worked with a lot of mills and I've done a lot of fabric construction. Gosh, Maggie, maybe that would be a fun. Let's ask people in the thing if they'd like to know more about that, because that's very interesting.
Let us know, guys, if that is something. Okay, yes. One is yes, by the way, yes. Overwhelming, yes.
Overwhelming, yes. Oh,
Yes,
really?
I'd say
Oh,
so,
good. Oh,
absolutely.
God. You guys are going to need a cocktail for that because I can talk a long time about mills.
We'll add it to the
Anyway,
list.
the double rub count, or the Weizenbeek test, is basically a test where they take the finished fabric and they put it in a machine, and the machine just does this for hundreds and thousands of times, okay? And that basically is meant to replicate how many times butts in denim are going to go skidding across that seat cushion and back again when it gets up, okay? And so what that does is the higher the Weizenbeek number, meaning the higher the number of times that little thing with pressure went across the fabric, the more performance oriented that fabric is going to be. So for instance, products like cotton, products like short staple polyesters, products like delicate silks, very low on the double rub test, okay? Products like wool, products like long staple polyesters, certain types of linen, those kinds of things, much higher on the Weizenbeek test, and they'll perform for a lot longer. So basically what that means is you will not get kind of wear markings in the upholstery nearly as quickly if it has a higher double rub test. Now, not all of the manufacturers do this because most sofa manufacturers do not make their own fabrics. So they have to rely on the vendor that makes the fabric to give them their test results. And some of them bother to, some of them don't. But the more expensive it is, the more you should be asking about that, okay? And just kind of know in your mind that the more delicate a fabric is, the more likely it is it's going to show wear. And that's the real thing about it, guys, is that the upholstery is actually that last layer that we all see, right? And underneath all of it's like plumbing, right? Your hand goes to the faucet, right? But how that faucet works has everything to do with all the rough plumbing that's behind the walls, right? So kind of the same with furniture. All of this stuff down in here, this is all super important to understand so that over time, the piece doesn't look like a mess or show a whole lot of wear, even if the fabric is nice. But if the fabric goes first, it's doing what's called uglying out. And that's a technical term. But what it does mean is that the sofa is still decent, but you may need to get it reupholstered because the fabric didn't perform. So that's really the key to understanding the buzzwords around that. Oh my gosh, I had no idea I was going to go on that long. Oh, wait, what am I? Oh, not annotating. Let me erase. I'm sorry, guys. I had no idea I was going to do that and talk about Weizenbeeks, but there you go. All right, now, the next thing that you want to do is, and I know we've talked, oh, wait, you know what? One more thing is, speaking of fabrics, I am going to do this, which is, and everybody that's in my inner circle group knows this, but the reality of it is, if you are about to invest $2, $3, $5, $10,000 on a sofa, you want to spend the $15, and whoever's out there knows who I'm talking about. Not you, Megan, to get a sample of the actual fabric in your hand, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of manufacturers will actually, say it costs you $15, $20, okay, to get the sample sent to you. Now, a lot of them will actually take that cost off of the price of the sofa once you're done, but it's so important. Why is it so important? Well, let me tell you, everybody that's in the inner circle has been discovering how crucial it is to have the actual sample of something in hand and test it in your lighting conditions that it's going to be in, because this lovely little kind of a, I don't know, felted, whatever it is. This little guy looks fantastic in this picture, but that's going through 2 computer screens to get to me. So by the time this thing lands on my doorstep, this could be yellow. Okay. This could be purple. All right. This one could be chocolatey, and that could look like chalk, like a chalky gray. Okay. So the reality of it is, until you have it in your hand, you are not going to make a final choice. So just order the samples, guys. And if they don't send you the samples, woo, move on. That is a vendor you do not want to work with. Okay. So that is super important. Now, measuring up, like I said, it is super important. Now that you've kind of done that once or twice, you've sort of selected your style a little bit. You've sort of begun to understand a little bit about kind of how you're going to use it. You know, you've done the quiz, you've done your little floor plan. You want to go double check it. All right. And the reason that you want to double check it, and you want to do things like measuring your door jambs, or measuring, maybe you have an L-shaped hallway. Oh, those are a bitch. Oh, did I say that? They are a problem, because sometimes getting a sofa that is 84 inches long around a tight L-shaped corner, it doesn't happen. I've seen it, guys. I've seen it happen with people. So it's really important that you measure one last time to make sure that you've done that. And of course, like I said, you're going to go in and have done the sit test. You sort of feel good about it. Now you're getting ready to place the order. One last step, you want to read and reread that return policy, because many vendors actually had to change their idea around a return policy, because prior to COVID, many of them would not let you actually return a sofa, because they're like mattresses, right? You get it there, and that first day your kid spills grape juice on it. You know, yeah, you clean the sofa up, but it's still got grape juice inside. Okay, they can't take that back. So here's the reality: is many of them, the vendors, have changed their return policy. And there's a couple of Canadian companies out there that have really great return policies, because they know you guys have a little bit more restricted choices. So they've actually kind of stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, you can have it for 30 days or whatever. And as long as there's no damage, you know, you can return it. But know your options, okay? In case something goes crazy wrong and the fabric that they send to you is actually different or whatever. I mean, there's lots of things that can go wrong between now and the 6 to 9 weeks that you're going to wait before you get the sofa in your space, okay? So that's a super important thing to do. And then what you do is write that check and get ready to chill out and wait for the piece to come.
Whenever that happens, yes.
Nail biting the whole way, if you're like Megan, right?
Yes. No, seriously. I'm actually like, I did measure, for example, but I'm like having like this like panic attack that it's not going to actually like go up the stairs. I'm just like having all these.
Your stairs are good though. They're open.
So, okay, good.
No, tough stairs, second floors, L-shaped hallways, narrow door jams. Those are all troublesome, trouble points, choke points, and you need to make sure you've checked those before, you know, sorry, I just saw the chat. Article, yes, Jonathan, thank you. Article was who I was thinking of. They have, or used to have, I haven't checked recently, a really great return policy for their pieces. So if you happen to find something and you're up in Canada, that you happen to find something up there that you like with it, that's great. Now, if you're international, guys, for Yannick and you guys and things like that, what's the video on the international shoppers, Megan? Shopping options?
I think I don't remember the title off the top, but I do know that if you were to search the YouTube channel under international vendors, it'll come up.
I think we also have it in the club.
Yes. Oh, we also have, sorry, you're right. We also have a Lisa's Brain article that's called Lisa's Favorite Furniture and Decor Vendors. And there's
Yes.
a list at the very bottom of international options.
Yes. So there's some good places internationally to get them. I mean, I've mentioned stuff that are here in the US, but there's a couple of really good vendors there in Australia. There's a couple of good ones in Europe, and most of Europe will ship to, either Norway, Germany, Italy, those kinds of places. And then we've also got some Canadian things in there as well. So, excuse me. So there's lots of good options to kind of like take a look at. So now, do you think people have questions? Should we ask a couple questions?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Sonia asks, in a great room, is it okay to mix different styles of sofas? For example, one that's more for everyday family lounging and another that's more geared for visitors. And if so, what can she vary, like color, texture, shape? She wants a polished look, but comforts for the family.
Okay, so yeah, good question. Really good question, actually. So here's what you can do is you need to have a style statement established, okay? And the two pieces need to be stylistically very similar. In other words, if you've got one that has a rolled arm and then your sectional should have some type of softened arm of some sort. Do you see what I mean? In other words, there should be a style language that the two pieces share, even if their configurations are different, okay? Secondly, they want to share an upholstery statement. And I'm going to say statement only because they don't have to be done in the same fabric, but maybe one is leather in a kind of a taupe color, and then the other sofa is also sort of a taupe color, but it's in a linen, okay? So you want them to have chromatic stories that are very close to each other. You want them to have fabric styles that pair happily together. And of course, stylistically, you want them to be like, don't get, a super formal upright piece for the formal side, and then get something that looks like it came out of B&B Italia, for the family side of it. Find something that kind of is a middle ground for both spaces. Okay. That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, that's really good. Demetra asks, can Lisa address sofa selection and placement around a fireplace?
Okay.
It's kind of a loaded question.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So the question, Demetra, is your TV on top of that fireplace? Because a fireplace is simply one of the focal points that you can use. Now, I'm going to just take a deep breath and go, no, this isn't the room that has the TV over the fireplace. Okay, so perhaps the TV is somewhere else in the room or not in the room at all. It's in someplace else. So if you're literally just looking at a sofa with a fireplace, there's basically three types of layouts that you can do, which is sofa facing the fireplace with accessory chairs or secondary lounge chairs on either side. There's sofas facing each other, lined up with the fireplace, so they're perpendicular to the fireplace with a table in between, okay? Or a sofa on one side and then two paired medium to large scale occasional chairs facing that sofa so that the weight is balanced on either side of that fireplace. So those are your three basic options with that.
Good. She also asks, is sectional placement okay against or diagonal to a window if your entire wall is a window?
diagonal to a window.
Yeah, I wonder if she means kind of like pressed up against, like, because you know how you shouldn't put your sofa up against the wall, ideally pushed forward a bit. Is it okay to do that if that wall is all windows?
Oh, okay. No, you can never put a sofa up against a window, right slap up against it. A, because you have a window treatment probably, or some type of thing that's going to maybe drop down and would hit the sofa. So you always need what's called a clearance behind that. And you can either make that a reasonable distance, say 28, 30 inches, so that you can walk behind to get to the windows, or if there's a sliding door, then that's a reasonable solution. If there's no sliding door and there's no access to the windows, you want to pick something that's a little bit lower in back height, and you can pull it about a foot off the window. And then no one's really going to use that as a major traffic pattern, but if you should need to get behind it for something or another, 10 to 12 inches is acceptable for kind of that backspace to create it so that it doesn't look like you mashed it up against it.
Okay, good.
Good question,
Angela,
actually. That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Angela just posted this actually. It's a question about a sectional. Can it face the fireplace in a great room, kind of like her open floor plan? Her sofa is nice. She just doesn't want to face it back. Not sure what you mean by the end of that there, Angela, but ultimately, can a sectional face the fireplace?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two ways the sectional can go with a fireplace. If the fireplace is directly in front, the long leg of the, I'm just going to use an L, for instance, the long leg of an L can face the fireplace with the short leg of the L either projecting towards the fireplace on whichever side it is. And then what you want to do is you want to anchor that open section with a small scale accent chair, so that there's another piece that ties the sectional together, ties the seating arrangement together in a sectional format. Okay. Then there's also doing the sectional so that the long side is perpendicular to the fireplace with the short side facing the fireplace. And if that's the case, what you want to do is make sure that that short side has a full back on it. In other words, there are some sectionals that give you the option of doing one seat with a full back and then an attached, what's called an ottoman. Okay. And you don't want that facing the fireplace. You want the short L to be a full back all the way across with an arm on the other side. So you could do either one of those, but you can't ever do it where the sectional has the short leg with the back up against the fireplace, because then you're blocking the fireplace being able to act as the focal point.
Gotcha. Bobby K in chat asks, once you get the perfect sofa, how do you make hubby's ugly recliner invisible?
You take it out of the room. Oh my God, what is it with men and recliners? We're all tired at the end of the day. We don't insist upon putting our feet up. What is going on there? Okay, so here's the answer to that. Get a good looking recliner. Okay, number one. Number two, make sure that, so on the sectional that I laid out with the long leg facing the fireplace, okay, the short leg, perhaps in this instance, will be to the right, okay? Then the third piece is that sectional, and it needs to be scooted back far enough so that when it opens up and lays down, that it does indeed clear whatever kind of traffic pattern might be required to get into the sectional and sit down. Yeah. So
Jonathan had an answer. He said, if divorce isn't an option, I'd go with reupholstery.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Nice.
There's always slip covering, reupholstery. Yes. I mean, there's lots of ways to hide ugly. I have seen more bad, ugly recliners in my career than you would believe. Okay. And we've managed to find solves for all of that.
Amazing, actually. And Lisa, we actually saw one of our inner circle clients had this very question. Her husband insisted on a recliner, but we actually found a pretty good looking one at Crate and Barrel.
Yes. Oh,
So
yes. There
that
are
would be a
some
good,
very nice
good spot
ones
to
out
look.
there now.
Mhm, mhm.
Yes. You know, there's no excuse for buying an ugly recliner. If you
Mhm.
don't already have it, okay, you do not have to go out and make that mistake, because there are lots of vendors out there that make really great looking ones. Oh my gosh, Natuzzi. There's like a ton of European vendors that distribute internationally that have fabulous looking recliners. There's Pottery Barn. There's Crate and Barrel. There's great looking recliners that also look like your style statement, as opposed to looking like a overcooked double stuffed potato upholstered in leather.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what people default to because they see them in showrooms. And that's the other thing too, guys. Let's talk about the upholstery for a second, which is that a selection of a leather sofa is a bigger investment than a selection of a fabric sofa, okay? But you want to think really carefully about leather, because leather is not necessarily the coolest thing to sit on for a long term. So if you're doing kind of the lounger idea of a sofa, skip the leather and go to something a little bit go to something that's more breathable, absorbable, things like fabric. Okay. If you're thinking about something formal, like we were talking earlier in the chat about Chesterfields. Chesterfields are fabulous sofas to be done in leather because A, the style was originally done in leather, and B, excuse me, the Chesterfields are more formal sitting sofas. They are not loungers. You don't hang out on them. So the leather isn't, you're not going to be on it for as long. So the leather's a little bit more of a thing. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh gosh, I've got kids and dogs and all the rest of that. Well, I understand that, but the truth of it is, if it's your nice sofa, you might want to look at the idea of getting a performance fabric instead of a leather, because the performance fabrics will be more breathable and not as expensive as the leather, and and typically perform really well. So that's a better solution, more comfortable than a leather. Oh yes, Dana.
I just wanted to say to everybody that that next Sunday we're doing the live Q&A, but we want to bring a few people online if possible. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to see. I mean, it may be a big disaster, but it's live, so we're going to try to do that. And so if you guys want to get on camera with us, it's only for people in the design club that can come on camera. I just promote you to a panelist, and you'll just kind of show up and turn on your camera and your mic, and we'll see how that works. If it doesn't, I'll just send you off. Anyway, but there's that. And so we were going to have you guys are going to do a little quiz with everybody, whoever wants to come on. Maybe Jonathan B wants to come on. I don't know. And then we're also, that would be fun, wouldn't it? And then we're also going to be able to, we're going to do a couple of fun little games like we were talking about. And we're going to do, we're going to talk about some of our favorite TV show sets that we're currently watching now. I have one that I want to show. Megan has one that she wants to show, and Lisa has one that she wants to show. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to do some Q&As, and it's just going to be fun. So anyways, it's designed to be like a little cocktail party, not cocktail, but coffee clutch or whatever. And that's what we're doing Sunday. So make sure you do that. I'm reading the chat too. You guys are crazy on chat. But anyway, so are you good with everything, Lisa? Did
Actually,
you want
I
to
did see one question in the chat that I wanted to address, which I did not
Okay.
in the main thing, which is sofa beds. And I know a lot of people need them. And so let me just say this about a sofa bed, which is that they used to be really torture pieces. They were awful. And some of them still are, okay? But there are vendors out there that specialize in doing sofa beds that can give you some really good options on them. Categorically, a sofa bed sits much firmer than a regular sofa does. So it's not the piece that you want to invest in for if you're all loungers and you want to kind of like lay there. It's just too firm because it's got this folded up mattress inside. So so what you want to do with sofa beds is you want to, when picking one, is you want to really read the reviews, because people will tell you, oh my God, this thing's a nightmare to sleep on, or I love it. I can think of a couple of vendors here in the US that I have used that are medium to higher quality of sofa beds. Like Room and Board makes a very good sofa bed. You want to look at how it folds out as one. IKEA makes a perfectly reasonable sofa bed that is basically a what do you call it, a futon, right? And it's great for like a kid's room or, something like that. That's a playroom or a secondary space, something like that. Probably wouldn't be great to sleep on full time, but, super inexpensive and folds out easily. But if you're looking for something that's really more of like a sitting piece that also could double as someplace where maybe your in-laws come and sleep for, a weekend or something like that, then you want to look at, some of your bigger, more quality-oriented vendors like, I know Room and Board. I believe the Crate and Barrel has a good sleep sofa. And the answer will be in the reviews, guys. That will be the telltale story of it. Is it easy to get in and out? Does it weigh a ton? And does the mattress hold up? And does it feel like a torture chamber if you're sleeping on it, for a couple of days or something like that? So so that is, thank you for asking that, whoever, because sofa beds I know are, kind of a real thing. With space configurations the way they are.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
Yes. Oh, good. Yeah. Yes. All right. Good.
Yeah.
No, listen, thanks to whoever that was on the thing, on the chat. I think it was Mira, actually, maybe.
I think so. Yep.
That threw that in. So that was very good. So, gosh, guys, I hope I've answered a lot of questions about sofas. They're a big investment. They're an anchor piece to your space. They're an opportunity to slam on your style statement. So you really want to kind of do the homework to sort of get it right. And that's why we wanted to give you as many resources as we could. So you've got 2 things in the library to look at and something in Lisa's space, as well as when we'll post this video, and Dana knows more about that than I do.
Soon.
That's right. And, good. So excellent.
And guys, if you'd like to learn about tile, that's actually what we're going to be covering next week. So same time, same place, but we're going to be discussing tile secrets, and Lisa knows them all. So definitely.
Oh my gosh.
Look forward to seeing you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And this actually came out of Inner Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So if major insider info.
That's right. Let's just put it this way. If you have a project where you are doing tile on it, you should be in Inner Circle.